One of the easiest mistakes to make in friendship is believing that words tell you everything you need to know about a person. Someone can call you a close friend, tell you they support you, promise to be there whenever you need them, and still behave very differently when circumstances become inconvenient. This does not mean that every friendly word is a lie. It means that words should be understood alongside behavior. If you want to understand the quality of a friendship, stop focusing only on what someone says about you and begin observing what they consistently do. Do they respect your time? Do they listen when you speak? Do they remember the things that matter to you? Do they support you when there is nothing to gain? Do they respect your boundaries when you disagree? Do they treat you with the same respect when other people are watching? These questions are more useful than trying to decode every sentence or facial expression. Human beings naturally create impressions. We want others to see us in a certain way, and sometimes our words become part of that image. A person may genuinely believe they are supportive while still behaving selfishly. Another person may not be very expressive, but may consistently show loyalty through their actions. That is why you should not judge friendship only by emotional intensity. Look for consistency. A friend who constantly says, "I'm always here for you," but disappears whenever you genuinely need reasonable support is giving you information. A friend who rarely makes dramatic promises but consistently checks in, respects your boundaries, and treats you fairly may be demonstrating something far more meaningful. Octaves require effort. Words can be spoken in seconds. This does not mean you should become suspicious every time someone's behavior is imperfect. Everyone has responsibilities, bad days, misunderstandings, and limitations. One missed message does not prove that someone dislikes you. One disagreement does not prove betrayal. One moment of selfishness does not necessarily define an entire friendship. The key is the pattern. Ask yourself what happens repeatedly. If you feel ignored once, don't immediately create a story. If you repeatedly feel dismissed after calmly communicating your needs, pay attention. If someone makes one insensitive comment and genuinely apologizes, there may be room for understanding. If someone repeatedly insults you and then tells you that you're too sensitive whenever you object, that is a different pattern. Wisdom comes from distinguishing between isolated mistakes and repeated behavior. There is another important mistake people make. They become obsessed with discovering whether someone secretly hates them. This can create unnecessary anxiety. You don't need to read minds. You don't need to analyze every message. You don't need to interpret every laugh, pause, or change in tone as evidence of hidden hostility. Instead, focus on what you can actually observe. Is the friendship respectful? Is the effort reasonably mutual? Can you disagree without being attacked? Can you share good news without being constantly mocked? Can you say no without being punished emotionally? Can you be yourself without constantly worrying about how you will be judged? These questions reveal much more than trying to uncover someone's secret thoughts. And remember that people are complicated. A friend can care about you and still become jealous sometimes. A friend can make mistakes. A friend can disagree with your choices. A friend can have their own insecurities. That does not automatically make them an enemy. The important question is what they do with those emotions. A healthy person can experience jealousy without trying to sabotage you. They can feel disappointed without disrespecting you. They can disagree without trying to control you. This is where character becomes visible. Difficult emotions are normal. How someone manages those emotions tells you much more. You should also apply the same standard to yourself. Ask whether you are consistently treating your friends with the respect you expect from them. Do you listen to them? Do you celebrate their achievements? Do you respect their boundaries? Do you become resentful when they succeed? Understanding friendship is not about putting everyone under suspicion. It is about becoming honest enough to see relationships as they actually are. Sometimes you may discover that a friendship has changed. People grow, priorities change, interests change. Two people who were once extremely close may gradually move in different directions. That does not necessarily mean someone secretly hates the other person. Sometimes there is simply less compatibility than before. Accepting this can be healthier than inventing an enemy, and sometimes you will discover genuine disrespect. If someone repeatedly undermines you, violates your boundaries, humiliates you, or tries to make you feel small, you do not need to spend endless energy proving that they dislike you. Their behavior already gives you enough information to make a decision about your boundaries. You don't need hatred to justify distance. You don't need dramatic confrontation to protect your peace. You can simply recognize the pattern and decide what level of access that person should have to your life. This is the deeper lesson. Don't become obsessed with what people secretly think. Become attentive to what they consistently demonstrate. Words can introduce a friendship, pardols reveal its quality. Watch the pattern, respect the evidence, and let people's repeated behavior tell you what their words cannot. Friendship becomes complicated when competition enters the room. A little competition is natural. Friends may compare achievements, challenge each other, joke about who is better at something, or feel a brief moment of jealousy when one person succeeds. None of this automatically means there is hatred underneath the friendship. Human beings have emotions, and even people who care about each other can sometimes experience envy or insecurity. The important question is not whether jealousy ever appears. The important question is what someone does with it. A healthy friend can feel jealous and still choose to behave with respect. They may need a moment to process your success, but they can eventually congratulate you. They can compete with you without trying to destroy your confidence. They can admire what you have achieved while continuing to work toward their own goals. An unhealthy pattern looks different. Instead of allowing competition to motivate them, a person may repeatedly try to reduce your achievements. Every time you accomplish something, they find a reason to make it seem insignificant. If you receive praise, they remind you of your weaknesses. If you achieve a goal, they immediately tell you why it doesn't matter. If someone compliments you, they interrupt with a story about something they have done. One isolated comment does not prove anything. Look for repetition. This is where social awareness becomes valuable. You don't need to become suspicious of every joke or disagreement. You simply need to notice whether the relationship repeatedly leaves you feeling respected or diminished. There is a difference between playful teasing and persistent humiliation. Friends often joke with one another. That can be healthy when both people understand the boundaries and both can laugh. But if the humor always moves in one direction, if you are constantly the target, or if your discomfort is ignored after you communicate it, the situation deserves attention. Respect should exist beneath the humor. The same principle applies to competition. Healthy competition can make both people better. A friend may see you improving and think, I want to work harder too. Your progress becomes inspiration. Unhealthy competition says, if I cannot be ahead, I want you to be behind. That mindset can create subtle behavior. Someone may discourage you from trying something new because they are afraid you will succeed. They may minimize an opportunity. They may repeatedly compare your progress with theirs. They may become unusually cold whenever you receive recognition. Again, don't immediately assume malicious intent. People sometimes behave poorly because they are insecure rather than because they consciously want to hurt someone. Understanding that distinction matters. If insecurity is the cause, honest communication may help. You can calmly say that certain comments are discouraging or that you would rather support each other's progress than constantly compare yourselves. A healthy person may listen. They may even recognize that they have been behaving unfairly. But if the pattern continues after you've communicated clearly, you have more information. This is why communication should come before dramatic conclusions whenever the situation allows it. Don't silently build a case against someone for months while pretending everything is fine. If a friend's behavior genuinely bothers you, address the specific behavior rather than attacking their character. Instead of saying, you're jealous of me, explain what happened. You often dismiss my achievements, and it makes me feel like you don't respect what I'm working toward. This creates an opportunity for a real conversation. Their response can tell you something important. Do they listen? Do they become defensive immediately? Do they acknowledge your experience? Do they explain their perspective respectfully? Do they make an effort to change? A person's response to honest feedback can reveal as much as the original behavior. There is also a lesson here for you. Don't become the friend who cannot celebrate anyone else's success. If someone you care about achieves something meaningful, allow yourself to appreciate it. Their success does not automatically make your progress smaller. Comparison becomes destructive when you treat another person's achievement as evidence of your own failure. Someone else gets an opportunity. That does not mean your opportunities have disappeared. Someone else receives praise. That does not mean you have become less capable. Someone else reaches a goal before you. That does not determine the timeline of your own life. The stronger mindset is to use other people's success as information or inspiration, rather than as a threat to your identity. This also helps you recognize healthy friendships. A good friend does not need to be the most successful person in the room. They don't need to win every conversation. They can allow someone else to have a moment. They can say congratulations without secretly turning it into a competition. They can be proud of you without feeling that they have lost something, and you should offer them the same freedom. Friendship becomes stronger when people stop treating each other's progress as a scoreboard. You should also be careful about interpreting every disagreement as jealousy. Sometimes a friend may genuinely disagree with your decision. Sometimes they may notice a risk you have overlooked. Sometimes they may offer criticism because they care. The answer is not to reject all negative feedback. Listen to it, examine it, ask whether there is evidence behind it. A friend who challenges you respectfully may be helping you more than someone who praises everything you do. The difference is intention and behavior. Constructive disagreement aims to help, considered belittling aims to diminish. You learn the difference through patterns, so don't become obsessed with discovering whether someone secretly envies you. Instead, observe whether the friendship allows both people to grow. Can you celebrate each other? Can you disagree? Can you compete without hostility? Can you succeed without making the other person feel small? When friendship can survive another person's success, it has a strong foundation. Healthy friends don't need each other to stay small so they can feel important. Success has a strange way of revealing the quality of relationships. When life is difficult, many people can stand beside you because everyone understands struggle. But when something genuinely good happens to you, the reactions around you can become more complicated. Your achievement may expose insecurities that were invisible before. Someone who seemed completely comfortable with you may suddenly become distant, dismissive, or unusually critical. But this is where you need discernment, not suspicion. A friend's awkward reaction to your success does not automatically mean they secretly hate you. People can experience complicated emotions. Someone may be genuinely happy for you while also wishing they were further ahead in their own life. They may feel insecure for a moment and still choose to support you. Human emotions are rarely simple. The important thing is what they consistently do with those emotions. When you accomplish something meaningful, pay attention to whether the people around you can allow your moment to exist. A healthy friend does not need to immediately redirect attention toward themselves. They can listen to your good news. They can ask questions. They can congratulate you. They can be happy that something you worked for finally happened. This does not mean they have to celebrate dramatically every single time. People have their own lives, responsibilities, and moods. A friend might respond quietly because they are distracted or dealing with something unrelated. One flat reaction is not enough evidence to make a serious judgment. Look at the pattern. If every achievement is met with sarcasm, dismissal, comparison, or criticism, then something deserves closer attention. Imagine you tell a friend that you reached an important goal. Instead of acknowledging your effort, they immediately say, "That's not really a big deal." Perhaps you receive recognition for something you've worked hard on, and they respond by listing someone else who has achieved more. Maybe you share exciting news, and they immediately begin explaining why it probably won't last. Again, one comment can be misunderstood. Repeated behavior is different. A person who constantly minimizes your progress may be revealing something about how they experience your success. Sometimes the problem is insecurity. Your progress reminds them of something they feel they haven't achieved. Instead of using that feeling as motivation, they protect themselves by making your accomplishments seem less important. Understanding this can help you avoid taking every comment personally, but understanding does not mean accepting everything. You can have compassion for someone's insecurity while still refusing to allow their insecurity to determine how you see yourself. This is an important distinction. If someone says, "I'm happy for you, but I wish I were making progress like that too," they are expressing vulnerability. If someone repeatedly tells you that your accomplishments are meaningless, that you don't deserve recognition, or that your success is simply luck, the dynamic is different. One is honest emotion, the other may become a pattern of discouragement, and the strongest response is rarely to prove yourself to them. You don't need to convince someone that your achievement matters. You don't need to brag. You don't need to become arrogant. You simply continue your work. Let your results speak for themselves. This is one of the most powerful ways to protect your peace. When you stop needing everyone around you to validate your progress, their reactions lose some of their influence over you. If someone celebrates you, appreciate it. If someone is indifferent, don't immediately collapse into disappointment. If someone criticizes you, examine the criticism. If someone repeatedly tries to diminish you, reconsider how much access they should have to your personal goals and ambitions. Your confidence should not depend entirely on the audience. There is another side to this lesson. Learn how to celebrate others. If you want healthy friendships, become the kind of person who can genuinely appreciate another person's success. Don't turn every conversation into a comparison. Your friend gets a promotion, celebrate them. Your friend learns a difficult skill, encourage them. Your friend achieves something you have not achieved yet. Let that inspire you rather than threaten you. Their success does not subtract from your potential. When you develop this mindset, you become better at identifying healthy relationships because you understand what mutual support actually looks like. A healthy friendship does not require both people to have identical lives. One person may be doing well while the other is struggling. Their circumstances can change over time. What matters is whether both people can maintain respect through those changes. Sometimes the roles will reverse. The friend who is celebrating today may be struggling tomorrow. The person who needs encouragement today may be the one giving encouragement later. Friendship becomes stronger when neither person needs the other to remain below them. This is why success is such a useful test of relationships. It reveals whether someone can separate your progress from their self-worth. But be careful not to turn this test into a game. Don't deliberately provoke people to see whether they become jealous. Don't announce every achievement simply to observe reactions. Don't create situations designed to expose hidden enemies. That approach can make you paranoid and damage relationships that were never actually unhealthy. Simply live your life. Grow, work, improve, and observe naturally. The people who genuinely respect you will usually find ways to support your growth, even if they sometimes struggle with their own emotions. And if someone repeatedly responds to your success by trying to make you feel smaller, you don't need to declare them an enemy. You can simply recognize the pattern and adjust your expectations. The goal is not to collect proof that people dislike you. The goal is to understand which relationships give you room to grow. Never make your light smaller just because someone else is uncomfortable seeing it. Grow with humility. Celebrate others sincerely and let consistent behavior, not one emotional reaction, show you who truly respects your journey. One of the clearest ways to understand the quality of a friendship is to watch what happens when you say no. People often talk about respect as though it only matters when everyone agrees, but real respect becomes visible when boundaries create inconvenience. Anyone can appear supportive when you are giving them what they want. The deeper question is whether they can still respect you when you choose differently. A boundary is not an attack. It is simply a statement about what you are willing to accept, what you are comfortable with, and how you want to be treated. You might decline an invitation because you have other responsibilities. You might decide not to share something personal. You might disagree with a friend's decision. You might need time alone. You might refuse to lend something, participate in something, or change a decision simply to make another person happy. A healthy friend may be disappointed, but disappointment is not disrespect. They might say, I understand. They might ask whether there is another time. They might disagree with your decision, but they still recognize that you have the right to make your own choices. This distinction matters because unhealthy relationships often reveal themselves through pressure rather than obvious hostility. A person may not openly insult you. Instead, they may repeatedly make you feel guilty for having boundaries. They might say, you never do anything for me. They might accuse you of changing. They might make your reasonable decision sound selfish. They might repeatedly pressure you after you have already answered. None of these behaviors automatically prove that someone secretly hates you. Sometimes people simply struggle with rejection or disappointment. But if the pattern continues, especially after you communicate clearly, it deserves your attention. Your boundaries are information. They tell other people where your limits are. Their response tells you something about how they view those limits. Consider what happens when you say no to a request. Does the person accept the answer? Do they negotiate respectfully? Or do they keep pushing until you eventually surrender because you are exhausted? That pattern matters. A friend who respects you does not need to agree with every decision you make. They simply understand that your life belongs to you. This is especially important because many people are afraid of disappointing others. They say yes when they want to say no. They agree to things they dislike. They keep quiet about uncomfortable behavior because they fear losing the friendship. But a friendship that depends on your inability to say no is not a healthy friendship. If someone only treats you well when you are agreeable, their kindness comes with conditions. You do not need to become harsh to establish boundaries. In fact, the strongest boundaries are often simple and calm. I can't do that. I'd rather not discuss that. That doesn't work for me. I understand your point, but I've made my decision. You don't need a long speech every time you protect your time or privacy. And you don't need to apologize for every boundary. There is a difference between being considerate and being controlled by guilt. Consideration means thinking about other people's feelings. Guilt-driven behavior means abandoning your own reasonable needs simply to avoid their reaction. Healthy relationships make room for both. You should also remember that boundaries work both ways. If you expect your friends to respect your choices, you must respect theirs. If a friend says no, don't immediately assume they don't care about you. They may have priorities you don't know about. They may need rest. They may have responsibilities. They may simply want to make a different decision. Respect cannot be one-directional. This is why boundaries can actually strengthen genuine friendships. They create clarity instead of silently building resentment. People communicate what works for them and what doesn't. That clarity reduces unnecessary misunderstandings. Sometimes a friend may react poorly at first and then reconsider. Give reasonable room for that. People are not perfect. A single emotional response does not define an entire relationship. Look for what happens afterward. Do they reflect? Do they apologize? Do they respect your boundary the next time? Do they make an effort to understand? A willingness to repair is valuable, but if someone repeatedly ignores your boundaries, pressures you after you have clearly said no, or tries to punish you whenever you make independent decisions, you should take the pattern seriously. You do not have to prove that they secretly hate you. Their behavior is enough information to decide how much access they should have to your life. And this is where many people make another mistake. They confuse distance with revenge. If a relationship becomes unhealthy, creating space does not have to mean attacking the other person. You don't need to expose them, humiliate them, or convince everyone that they are a bad person. Sometimes you simply reduce contact. You become more selective about what you share. You stop participating in unnecessary arguments. You invest more time in relationships where mutual respect is already present. That is not weakness, it is discernment. The purpose of boundaries is not to control other people. You cannot force someone to respect you. The purpose is to control your own participation in the relationship. You decide what you will accept. You decide what you will share. You decide where you will spend your time. You decide when a conversation is no longer productive. And once you understand this, you become less afraid of people's reactions. Someone may become disappointed when you say no. Someone may misunderstand your decision. Someone may even decide they no longer want the same level of friendship. That can be painful, but you cannot build a genuine friendship by constantly betraying your own limits. The strongest friendships are not those where nobody ever disagrees. They are the ones where disagreement can exist without destroying respect. So pay attention to what happens when you establish a reasonable boundary. Don't judge someone from one imperfect reaction, but don't ignore a repeated pattern of pressure either. A true friendship gives both people room to remain individuals while still choosing to care about each other. Respect your boundaries, respect theirs, and let repeated behavior reveal the strength of the relationship. Not every uncomfortable moment in a friendship is evidence of hidden hatred. This is one of the most important distinctions you can learn if you want to understand people without becoming suspicious of everyone around you. Human beings are imperfect. Friends become tired, distracted, stressed, insecure, frustrated, and sometimes thoughtless. They make mistakes. They say the wrong thing. They misunderstand each other. If you interpret every negative moment as proof that someone secretly dislikes you, you will eventually turn ordinary human imperfection into a story of betrayal. Wisdom begins with proportion. A single bad moment deserves attention, but it does not always deserve a final judgment. Imagine a friend forgets something important to you. You may feel disappointed, and that feeling is completely understandable. But before deciding that they don't care about you, consider the larger pattern. Have they generally been dependable? Have they supported you before? Do they acknowledge the mistake when you mention it? Do they make an effort to correct it? Context matters. One mistake can happen in a healthy relationship. Repeated disrespect is something different. This distinction protects you from two opposite mistakes. The first is being too trusting and ignoring serious patterns. The second is becoming so suspicious that you interpret every imperfect interaction as evidence of hidden hostility. Neither extreme gives you clarity. Instead, learn to examine behavior over time. Ask yourself, is this unusual for this person or is this normal for them? That simple question can change how you see relationships. If someone who normally treats you with kindness suddenly becomes distant for a day, there may be countless explanations. They could be stressed. They could be dealing with something private. They may simply need space. You don't have enough information to create a serious conclusion. But if someone repeatedly dismisses you, mocks your achievements, violates your boundaries, and refuses to listen when you communicate your concerns, then you are no longer dealing with one isolated moment. You are observing a pattern. Petals deserve more weight than isolated incidents. Another important principle is to communicate before assuming. If something genuinely bothers you, talk about it when appropriate. Don't spend weeks silently collecting evidence for a conclusion you have never tested. You might discover that there was a misunderstanding. You might discover that the person did not realize how their behavior affected you. You might discover that they have a completely different perspective, or you might discover that your concern was justified. All four outcomes are useful because they give you information. But communication should focus on behavior rather than accusations. Instead of saying, "You secretly hate me," explain what you observed. "When you dismissed my achievement in front of everyone, I felt disrespected." This gives the other person an opportunity to respond. Their response matters. A person who cares about the friendship may listen, explain, apologize, or try to improve. They may not agree with your interpretation, but they can still treat your feelings seriously. Someone who consistently mocks you for bringing up reasonable concerns is giving you different information. Again, don't rush to label them. Simply observe. There is also a danger in becoming addicted to suspicion. Once you start looking for hidden enemies, you can find evidence almost anywhere. A friend doesn't respond quickly, and you assume they are angry. They laugh with someone else, and you assume they are talking about you. They disagree with your decision, and you assume they want you to fail. This mindset can destroy good relationships because you begin responding to imagined intentions instead of observable behavior. You cannot build healthy relationships by constantly guessing what everyone secretly thinks. Instead, develop a stronger standard. Judge people by consistent behavior, direct communication, and reasonable evidence. This standard also allows forgiveness. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting everything or allowing repeated disrespect. It means recognizing that people can make mistakes without those mistakes becoming their entire identity. If a friend sincerely apologizes and changes their behavior, that matters. If they make the same mistake repeatedly and refuse responsibility, that matters too. Look at accountability. A healthy relationship has room for repair. People misunderstand each other. They sometimes hurt each other unintentionally. What matters is whether both people are willing to repair what happened. You should offer that same grace to others. Maybe you said something careless. Maybe you forgot something important. Maybe you reacted emotionally during an argument. If your friend gives you reasonable feedback, listen. The goal is not to become perfect at detecting other people's flaws. The goal is to become more accurate about relationships while becoming more responsible within them. This is why you should never use psychology as a weapon against your friends. Don't analyze every conversation looking for secret motives. Don't test people to see whether they are loyal. Don't deliberately create jealousy to observe their reaction. Don't manipulate someone just to prove that they are manipulative. Those behaviors create the very distrust you are trying to avoid. Instead, practice quiet observation. Listen. Communicate set boundaries. Give people room to explain themselves, then watch whether their actions remain consistent. Over time, the truth usually becomes clearer. Some friendships will become stronger because both people learn to communicate better. Some will naturally become more distant because your lives change. Some may require firmer boundaries because the relationship becomes unhealthy. None of these outcomes require you to become bitter. You can accept that not every relationship is meant to remain equally close. You can appreciate the good moments while recognizing that the relationship no longer fits your life. You can move forward without turning someone into an enemy. That is emotional maturity. Do not let one bad day destroy a good friendship, and do not let a good memory excuse a long pattern of disrespect. Look at the whole picture. Communicate when necessary and let consistent behavior, not fear or imagination, guide your judgment. There comes a point in every relationship when you have to stop asking, do they secretly hate me? And start asking a much more useful question. Is this relationship healthy for me? The difference may seem small, but it changes everything. When you become obsessed with discovering who secretly dislikes you, you give other people's opinions enormous power over your mind. You begin analyzing every message, every silence, every joke, every change in tone. You start looking for hidden enemies instead of looking at the quality of the relationships you actually have. You do not need to know exactly what everyone thinks about you. You need to know how they consistently treat you. If someone repeatedly makes you feel small, dismisses your boundaries, mocks your goals, refuses to respect your choices, or constantly creates unnecessary conflict, you already have enough information to reconsider the relationship. You do not need a confession. You do not need proof that they secretly hate you. Their repeated behavior tells you what you need to know. This is where self-respect becomes more important than approval. Many people stay connected to unhealthy relationships because they are terrified of being disliked. They believe they must keep everyone happy to remain accepted. So they tolerate behavior they would never recommend to someone else. They excuse repeated disrespect because they remember the good moments. They continue chasing people who consistently give them very little effort because they are afraid that walking away will make them look weak. But constantly chasing acceptance is exhausting. You cannot force someone to value you. You cannot persuade someone to become a better friend. You cannot make someone genuinely care simply by giving more, explaining more, forgiving more, or trying harder. At some point, you have to allow people's choices to speak for themselves. This does not mean cutting people off at the first disagreement. That would be immature. Strong relationships require patience, communication, forgiveness, and the ability to tolerate differences. The goal is not to remove everyone who frustrates you. The goal is to recognize when a relationship has become consistently unhealthy rather than temporarily difficult. There is a difference between conflict and disrespect. There is a difference between disagreement and hostility. There is a difference between needing space and deliberately excluding someone. There is a difference between a friend making a mistake and a friend repeatedly refusing to take responsibility. Learn these differences. They will save you from both unnecessary suspicion and unnecessary tolerance. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is communicate clearly. Tell someone what is bothering you. Explain the behavior you noticed. Give them an opportunity to understand your perspective. A genuine friendship can survive an honest conversation. In fact, difficult conversations can sometimes make a relationship stronger because both people finally understand what the other needs. But after communication comes observation. Did anything change? Did they make an effort? Did they respect what you said? Did they continue the same behavior? You cannot control their answer, but you can control what you do with the information. And this is where many people become trapped. They keep explaining the same boundary again and again, hoping that eventually the other person will understand. But if someone repeatedly ignores a reasonable boundary, repeating yourself may not solve the problem. You may need to change the amount of access that person has to your life. Distance does not always require drama. You do not need to announce that someone is your enemy. You do not need to insult them. You do not need to convince everyone else to take your side. Sometimes you simply become less available. You share less personal information. You stop participating in unnecessary arguments. You invest more time in people who treat you with mutual respect. You allow the relationship to become what it naturally needs to become. This is not about punishment. It is about alignment. Your time, attention, and trust are limited. Where you place them matters. The more secure you become within yourself, the less desperate you become for everyone else's approval. You can accept that some people will misunderstand you. Some will disagree with you. Some may not appreciate your personality. Some friendships will naturally fade. And that is part of life. You don't need universal approval to have a meaningful life. In fact, constantly trying to be liked by everyone can prevent you from becoming an honest person. You begin changing your opinions, hiding your preferences, avoiding reasonable boundaries, and performing a version of yourself that you believe others will accept. Eventually, you may be surrounded by people who like the performance rather than the real person. A better approach is to build relationships around authenticity and mutual respect. Be the friend you want to have. Celebrate other people's achievements. Listen when they speak. Respect their boundaries. Admit your mistakes. Communicate instead of assuming. Give people room to be imperfect, but also expect reasonable respect in return. You can be kind without being endlessly available. You can forgive without forgetting every lesson. You can understand someone without giving them unlimited access to you. You can care about someone while recognizing that the relationship needs more distance. This is the balance between compassion and self-respect. And perhaps the most important lesson is this: stop measuring your worth by who stays and who leaves. People leave for many reasons. Sometimes they change. Sometimes circumstances change. Sometimes the friendship has simply reached its natural ending. That does not automatically mean you failed. Your responsibility is not to make every relationship permanent. Your responsibility is to become someone who chooses relationships consciously, paid attention to consistency. Notice how people respond to your success. Observe how they handle your boundaries. Distinguish mistakes from patterns. Communicate when necessary, and when a relationship repeatedly violates your values, have enough self-respect to step back without bitterness. The strongest position is not knowing who secretly hates you. It is becoming so grounded in your own values that you no longer need to chase people who consistently choose not to respect you.